Hi, everybody. I'm Laureen Golden, and I am your host for today's webinar, and it is an honor to be here with each of you. The hosting organization for today's webinar is Sociocracy For All, an incredible nonprofit that works to make sociocracy accessible to everyone by creating resources, offering communities of practice, and doing online training. SOFA has some staff and around 60 volunteer members. One of our SOFA members and our guest for today is Andreas Jonsson, who will be presenting about a permaculture school in Sweden, self-governed by sociocracy. I'm really excited to collectively embark on this 1-hour exploration into Andreas' school, as I believe his school is helping to address one of the biggest challenges of our time, which I believe is this. And right now I'm going to quote from Dr. Maureen O'Hara of the International Futures Forum, who Anna Ruth pointed me towards. Dr. O'Hara says, psychologically, we were all raised in a world that no longer really exists. We have a new world we have to navigate, and we need a new psychology for that world. But how does that new psychology develop when all of our institutions for cultivating consciousness are set in the 19th and 20th century? So to me, a permaculture school self-governed by sociocracy offers us a glimmer of what a 21st century relevant education institution might look like, one which helps us transition to a society living in harmony with the ecosystem, adapting, regenerating, and thriving together. This webinar is structured as a presentation with time for Q&A at the end, and the room will remain open after the webinar for anyone who wants to stay to chat. We want this time to be meaningful for you all within the constraint of only 1 hour with lots of information to share. Therefore, we're encouraging you to add your thoughts, reactions, and questions into the chat while Andreas is presenting. This way you guys can all be sharing with each other in real time, and Andreas can read your words after the webinar. And since we won't have time at the end probably to take everyone's questions, I will be looking through the questions posted in the chat for patterns and themes that we can bring to Andreas in the Q&A, and I invite you all to help me with this process. So before we move into Andreas' presentation, we just wanted to give a chance for every voice to come into this room by using the chat for an opening round. So if you would write your response to the following 2 questions into the chat. The first one is, and I'll put the questions in the chat as well, but the first question is, where in the world are you right now? And then the second one is, what about this webinar sparked your commitment to be here? You know, by saying yes to being here, you're saying no to being somewhere else. So what was it about this topic that sparked your commitment? So if you want to take like 30 seconds and just write your responses into the chat, that would be great. And here are the questions. Thank you, everybody, for adding your voices. And Andreas, so whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation, and I'll be watching the chat and looking for themes and patterns to questions that come up, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Laureen. And thank you, everyone else, for being here. I just want to start to say that the presentation I'm going to hold is not about me as a person. It's a lot about the people I work with and the students I meet every day and the things that we create together. So I'm really honored to be here as a representative for that, but this is a much greater thing, and please keep that in mind when I do this presentation. So I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to talk for about, let's see, it's going to be 35 minutes maybe, and then I'll be open to questions. Maybe see how fast it goes, maybe a little bit before then. So just a moment. So I'm going to do a visual screen share. I hope you can see this. So this is the starting point of my talk. This is actually the centerpieces you see is the sociocratic permaculture design of our school. And it's come a long way, I would say. The school is on its 3rd year, but the nonprofit that was driven to this, that was working to create this school has a 10-year anniversary today, but this year. So 3 years and working, and within that time, we started visioning. And actually, not too long ago, that vision landed. And I'm also sorry to say, I'm glad to see Oscar here as well, because Oscar is a part of the board of the school. So I'm really happy to see him. So the vision landed after long discussions. It took years actually to reach this vision and mission. So the vision says, we see a society which is defined by care for the earth, people, fair sharing, and reciprocity. And we see a life where we live a life of diversity and abundance, and our behavior favors all life around us. We're living in a world adapted to small scale, where recycling and creation of resources is benefiting everyone. Natural systems exist, thrive, and regenerate. So that's the vision. That is my goal. I'm the principal. That's my role at the school. This is what I have to follow, because this is what we all agreed upon. And then we have a board, which gives us the mission. How do we actually do this? What is the tool to reach this vision? So the tool is popular education. We call it folkbildning in Swedish. So we're working with popular education as a tool for transition. And through courses in small-scale production, regeneration, and conservation of resources, we're helping people on their path from primarily being consumers to becoming producers. So now we know this, and this has been a great help actually for me to see my path and to see the whole school path and when we work with this design. So we see we've seen different needs within the design and within the school. So as having a long observation phase that we do in permaculture, we're observing the needs of students, needs of every individual, and needs of different groups like PDC groups, Permaculture Course groups, and different kind of courses that we have. And also and what we see is these needs are pretty much the same everywhere. So individual needs become group needs. And from that, we kind of create the design as an ongoing process. Looking back to when we started, we can see how the design has evolved. We started pretty hierarchical thinking kind of thing, where we didn't put in roles, we put in names. So the school was started sociocratically from scratch. There was no structure to begin with. So actually this is a way of seeing how it evolved. This is the second image of how this was working, but not really connecting the flows of the organization to where they should go. So it was actually pretty, I would say, turbulent for quite a while when I came in. So this was the third. So now we're seeing something like looks pretty similar. We'll also have to keep in mind that during this time, the school grew from around 9 employees to 22 in less than a year. So this is what it looks like today, and it's still evolving. We have courses that change, that get removed, new courses pop up, new circles pop up, just because of demand, more or less, because we need to change. So it's a design for a fast evolving system where we can adjust and become resilient more and more as time goes by. So this is the design. I'm going to talk a little bit now about how sociocracy plays together with permaculture in the way we think. Since these ethics, or the vision, we go back to the vision is clearly a permaculture vision, society which is defined by care for the earth, people, and fair sharing or reciprocity. Those are the 3 ethics of permaculture. So actually those are at the base of everything we do. And relating that back to sociocracy, how do we tie that back to permaculture? How does sociocracy and permaculture work together? Well, we look at it as a model of ecosystems. So if we look at how ecosystems work, they work at nested circles, nested systems that feed each other. So you have input and output between systems, and one system's output is supposed to feed the other system's input. So nothing gets lost in between. It doesn't produce waste, the ecosystem. It just produces complexity, succession, and yield. So this is what we want to create in a social system. Translated to sociocracy, that is, no one gets ignored. Produce no waste. Everybody has a role. So with the ecosystem perspective, we have a holistic view of the system. That means we have to take care of the whole as well as the parts. And the parts, the sum of the parts is always greater than the separate parts counted separately. And this is a living system. Social systems and ecosystems are both living systems. So the design process is just as similar as it can be, actually. Designing living systems is observing and interacting at the same time. One of the core permaculture principles. What we also want to do is see that every element has many functions. So for instance, a tree has many functions. It functions together with its environment, all the plants surrounding it, all the animals connecting to it. And in the same time, in the social system, we want to have multi-functionality as well. So many different roles is one good thing, and also one role divided on many people. So we have a redundancy in the system and resilience. Another thing with ecosystem is that it's self-organized. Systems and subsystems are self-organized. That means in a sociocratic organization, we want to distribute as much power as possible to those that it concerns. So we want that is kind of the main core principle that we're working on. Distribute power, distribute power. As soon as it arrives, distribute it. Within Sociocracy, we'll also work with double linking and domains. Domain thinking is the same like a system thinking, ecosystem thinking. Different ecosystems gives different kind of yields. They have separate intentions from other ecosystems. They interact, but they function as wholes by themselves. This is called limits and boundaries within permaculture. So we have to analyze the limits of a system. We have to analyze the boundaries of the people and the physics of the whole thing. How does actually this work? How do we create living systems that are self-organized and functioning? So, as I said, the domains have different goals that meet specific needs. One great example of that is we have different courses, and they're all self-organized, and they all have specific goals. And I'll turn into that a little bit later. Same with the economy circle that we have, and the organizational circle, and the top circle, the board. They work within their domains. The most important thing with the double linking that we have is that it creates transparency. That means at least 2 people from every circle is represented or delegated to the next higher circle, if you would call it that. What this creates, transparency creates trust, and it also creates a way of sharing that's relevant to the people care and fair share's ethics of the permaculture. So let's tune back. What we do to neutralize power, we don't neutralize power. If we look at power, it's always present. We do not have to fear it. We have to harvest it and share it. Looking at these 2 images, we do rounds in a very specific order, and everybody gets heard, but also maybe even more important, everybody gets a chance to listen attentively. Speaking is easy. Listening is hard. If you compare that to the other systems we have around us today, democracy, consensus, and autocracy, hierarchical decision-making, power rules, nobody really takes control of the situation. within Sociocracy, we rotate facilitation as well. That means everybody gets the chance to facilitate and generate proposals, and everybody has the chance to listen and talk. So we can have within Sociocracy, even if we have small working circles, we can have pretty free discussions. You know, it can look like the image to the right as well. But when we go to decision making, we always do it sociocratically. It depends on the working environment, I would say, but sociocratic overall structure. That's within every circle. So this was a bit of the background. Now I'm heading into locations. Where are we? Yeah, we're here. This is Europe, and we're in the south of Sweden. I hope you can see my cursor here. So this is us. We're in 3 locations, actually. One is in Lund. This is the metropolitan area of Copenhagen, Malmö, with the too many people. And we have an urban location here. Up to the right, we have the most rural location. This is actually a farm owned by one of the board member organizations. And here we have course in building and preservation, where we renovate this old farm using old skills. Carpentry, woodworks, with old tools. And actually you see the 2 bottom pictures here, creating your own tools. That's how you start. So when you know how to create tools, you also learn how to build. So this is actually an ongoing class that is very popular, and then I'll return to that a bit later. We have also in Lund, which is the urban area. And we have 2 locations. If you look up to the left, that's the super urban location with trains passing by every minute or so. But we also have this area, which is the urban growing area just on the fringe of the city, where we can take that facility, which is driven by urban farmers and urban growers, and use that location as a very good, inspiring location. So, but the main site is in Hör. And this is actually the name Holma, which is the school name. This is the design of the school that we're working with right now. So looking at this, you can see if we look in a bit deeper, we have a forest garden area here, which is 4,000 square meters. It's one of the biggest in Northern Europe. We have a huge greenhouse and some indoor space. And this is the area where we grow the food that we need. And this house is hopefully to become ours soon. We're working on the design process, how that will work actually. So I'm just going to show you now a small video and talk you to it to see where we're going. So this is without sound. This is the farming area that we have, where the courses of organic growing, 3 different courses, use this to produce the food that we need. We're not self-sufficient, but hoping to become within a not too far distant future. So we're heading now with a shaky camera into our school, a couple of students passing by. And this is the location for theory and the tools and grafting, seeding, making seedlings and stuff like that. This is also, as you can see by the chairs, a place to do check-in rounds. So we do check-in rounds in every class, and we do checkouts after the day is finished. It is also connected to a grow house, a greenhouse, and where the different classes have different objectives. So this is tomato production, and I think also some sweet potato production. Yeah, that's sweet potato. And every class have different growing spaces for their own needs. So this is actually also an area in which we want to evolve into becoming more self-sufficient. Now it's a lot of it's a pre-area to grow seedlings, to seed and move that out. But also within the warmer spaces here, you have like more tender fruit, like chilies and stuff like that, that has a bit of a hard time in our environment. But yeah, it works. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, this is the school. And I'm going maybe now to the biggest classroom. This is our outdoor classroom, which is a forest garden. As I said earlier, this is one of the great symbols of how an ecosystem, a managed ecosystem, could work. So this is the design with different sections catering to different needs. And as we walk in, we can say that every plant in this forest garden has a function. This is a 4,000 square meter forest garden. So we have plants that bind nitrogen to the soil. And this is an information tablet because it's open to the public. There are no locks. Everybody's welcome, and it's open year round, around the clock. And it also caters to like lots of children groups and school students and like park workers and stuff come in to see what we're doing. So everything in this forest garden has a function. Most things you see here are edible. It's a different way of producing food. Since we have plants that feed the system with nitrogen, we have ground crops that keep the moisture in the soil. So it's a self-generating system with everything has a function and a role, just like the way we want the school to function. We have accumulators pumping up minerals from the soil deep down and creating great humus for the soil, creating abundance. And this is the check-in spot that we use as a classroom. Actually, this was a visit the other day where the Swedish Agricultural University came to check out what we're doing, because they're more or less caught in a monocultural landscape thinking, which is an erosion thinking platform, I would say. This is very valuable for us to connect to the so-called experts that want more knowledge. Yeah, so we're heading out, school kitchen, outdoor kitchen with a pizza oven, and also a rocket stove oven to the left, and some designs always lying around. Yeah, heading out, you can say that this is an unrivaled pedagogic classroom. It's used on so many occasions for so many different things, and the reason we see that it works is we see it just people connect. They immediately understand this why, and it's a really good introduction to sociocracy after they get this knowledge as well. It just connects. So here we are now. It's a forest garden class within an offshoot. Actually, this is an offshoot that a nursery that was created as an entrepreneurial offshoot from the school. So the teacher there holding the class is actually also the owner of the nursery. So we're combining free nursery with school activity. So this is a school indoor activity. This is actually a transition permaculture class, doing a class on civil disobedience. And this is school staff planning, doing rounds, also indoors. So yeah, this is Holma. This is the main location. Yeah, so heading back out, we head into the organization. So we have a general circle that makes all policy decisions, working day-to-day policy decisions. And within these, we have the different courses. To the left, you see the profile courses, which are a lot of courses, all connected to the transitioning and the permaculture way of working. You also have the general course to the right, and all these admin economy, and also HAV, we call it, that is health, working environment, and well-being, and guidance. So we set up principles for each circle, and we also have here the domains and responsibilities for each circle. This is actually in Swedish, but this is really easy for us to follow as well. Looking at, if you look at me here, for instance, within the top circle, you can also see domains, which roles I have, and how I work within these roles. So actually there's a title. I am one of the few people with a title because it's actually demanded by by the state. So we're state sponsored, and all the funds we get is state sponsored, or most is state sponsored. And that makes it possible for us to have this school open for free. So every education, all education, every course is for free for everyone. But that demands also that we have a principal, a headmaster. If you look at the word headmaster, that's something almost abhorrent in looking at the word when it connects to sociocracy. There's no mastery here. The principal is something we work with out of need, but we also want a leader. So that's a general circle, which is represented through these arrows to come in and make decisions on policy. There are at least two connected to every circle. The top circle is connected by 3 arrows. That is me as one, and 2 out of staff coming in top circle as well. So the top circle, this is the domain of the you can say the outer world. They give us a mission, and they're on the outlook on regulation, and that's their responsibility. Same thing here. We have the responsibilities of them. This is in Swedish as well, but it's the same thing, and it's transparent if everyone can see it. The board is made up out of 8 different organizations, all within the environmental movement in Sweden. So we have the Biodynamic Association with growers that do biodynamic stuff. We have the core farms. We have organic growers. We have Sambruket, which is a close by, I would say, an experiment into transition and small scale. We have the Transition Network of Sweden, Permaculture Sweden, Forest Gardeners of Southern Sweden, and another environmental organization is Future in Our Hands. And all these have representatives into our board meetings. So they decide, you could call it upper policy, that which comes in from the outside. So we also have the admin economy that serves our overall economic structure. Since we have a structure in which every course has its own economy and is autonomous within that economy, we need a really good economic structure to serve that. So the economy circle, admin economy circle, actually serves a really complex organization, and it takes a lot of effort to run this, but I think we're getting there slowly. The thing we have with this, if you look at a regular connection to the top circle, if you pop back, you see this red arrow here going to the top circle. That is out of need, actually. Once every quarter, 3 months or so, we need a special economic report. So the best thing to do that is create, we have the economist coming in and giving us the professional view of it all in the top circle. So actually we build these arrows and connections as they arise from needs. It's a very permaculture way of doing it. Within the organizational circle and communication is where we dismantle the title of principle into many resilient, regenerative, and multifunctional co-creators. So the aim of this circle is regenerative leadership. We cannot have a principle that has the overarching view of it all, and when that person fails, the organization crashes. So we decided to divide this into separate domains and functions. So outer functions as a principle, inner functions as a principle, and outreaching functions as a principle, and also structural building. And I would say this is one of our main obligations in this circle is also creating transparency and keep listening. The overall future aim is, of course, future care. Regenerative leadership and future care is how we want to work with it. So actually now, if I go sick as a principal, we have 3 others jumping in. And that's a great thing for me, actually. We're heading into the general courses. General courses is one of our most interesting, I would say. So this general course is It's a special course where we get people who are not primarily interested maybe in transition, but they come from all different parts of society. And the most common thing about them is that they do not have regular schooling with them for all different reasons. We have different cultures, we have very varying backgrounds, but they all learn how to get theoretical knowledge with practical knowledge. So even this course connects to our transition profile. That means that they learn how to work with tools, and they learn about seeds, and learn about vegetables, and they learn about organizing as well. So they study maths, English, Swedish, history, and so on. But they also have like study themes. So current study themes, a few of them are power and resistance, need and desire, and what is truth. So actually, when you learn to read Swedish a bit better, you read about power and some kind of a resistance, and what needs and desires are, and how we work with them, and how society says you should work with them. So these are actually thematic educational units within every subject that connects also to a practical side. So I'm just going to show you another video clip again. And this is the general circle having an outdoor class in the in a growing environment. Here they're talking about, there's an upcoming election in Sweden, so they're talking about power, and also after that cooking their own food. And so connecting power with what you can do with your hands to kind of empower your own situation. And this is actually an outdoor class. We also have an indoor classroom, which is very urban. So this is in the center of Lund, small, pretty urban environment. As I said, trains passing by. We're in here. This is where we keep our board meetings as well. And yeah, it's not much to see actually. I think I'll skip that. But that's the main location for our top circle meetings as well. So these are the general courses. Then we have the profile courses, which are the main aim of our member organizations. We have to move to transition, and that's the objective. And within these, we have many different types of courses. We have organic growing, and every course has different objectives. We want to enable people to transition from being consumers into becoming producers. That's the overarching aim of this course. So we have a lot of growing, we connect a lot to food. And within the forest gardening course, for instance, we also want to move society from a total annual dependence to a greater extent of perennial abundance, since 98% of all we eat, more or less, is annual food and very seed dependent, with big seed companies coming in. We want to move that picture a bit. We also have the foodstuffs preparations, where we want to enable greater degree of self-sustenance with food security as a main objective. And we want to use this course integrated with every other course. Actually, Jenny, which is a great teacher, comes in on other courses and teaches her stuff there as well. We have the building and preservation, as I talked to you about. So we want to enable people to create sustainable living situations. And we do that with do-it-yourself knowledge and tools. If you look at the permaculture course, we use Sociocracy, or I had that course, and I use Sociocracy as a means of teaching. So actually, this is a PDC that runs for 5 weekends. So that's 15 full days over 6 months. But because it's so long, there's a lot of self-organized work in between. So the first weekend we work with rounds, objections, and decision making. So we talk about sociocracy, and we learn to do rounds, and we learn also to do an inventory on our resources and boundaries, our group needs. And then we see if there are any good design objects around. and we start forming groups, and vision, missions, and aims are discussed. So we spent 3 days of that in the beginning. And from that moment, people are self-organized groups, more or less, starting to be at least. And from that point, they work, I would say, around 2 days of self-organized work per week for 7 months, for 6 months. And the 4th weekend is coming up next weekend. And now the course is totally self-organized by the participants themselves. They do all the food, they do all the accommodation, they will be doing check-in rounds, checking each other for their well-being, making sure everybody's included. And they also do all the classes for a whole weekend. And they do the decision-making onto the 5th weekend. So this is what we want. What I want to enable is self-organizing as a course method. By the 5th weekend, they will present all their design work. So actually, this upcoming weekend, we will be traveling to all these different design locations that they have been working on, and we will go through them and help each other on the way. So that's a sociocratic way of teaching. So the profile courses are, well, they have aims. They do planning and delivering of courses. They do check-ins. They do rounds. That's the working method of every course. They're also self-organized. I mean, people jump in between courses, help each other out, create kind of a abundance, a broader picture within every course. But they also do the budgeting. If they want to employ somebody, they do. And if they want to buy something expensive, they do, because they have their own budget. They're also there to give us student council feedback, and that's what I will end with here. This is the last circle. How do we get people to meet that otherwise do not meet? So we have this circle of practicals, optional subjects, councils, and working days. So practicals is actually people coming in and doing practicals. Just to do a short video again, see if that works. This is actually the same general course again. No, this is actually the same video. Sorry, we'll do that. So the practicals is basically connecting them to do things they would not otherwise do. And so is the optional subject. Every course student needs to choose an optional subject from what they actually applied for. So this is actually, we have seed saving as an optional subject. So this is actually all the students from the school coming in and making a choice from 6 or 7 different additional courses. So this is a day where they will meet students that they would never otherwise meet, in creating meetings that they did not expect. So this is a seed saving course. So the students here are from all different courses, builders, they're from the general course, they're from the growers course, and then they can connect and talk to each other about things they would never do otherwise. So this is creating meetings, and it's also a great way for us for receiving feedback, diverse feedback. That's what we want. The other way we do it, want to create feedback, is through working days. So we have working days, and this is so-called Perma Blitz, a working day where we create the design we want with food, obviously. We put great detail into food and eating together. And then we can, so this is once or twice a year where we gather, or even more actually, up to 4 times a year, to create work together that is needed from a school point of view. So this is corn growing coming in. Yeah, and this is the school as it looks now. This was our last meeting, and this was not all, but we're around 200 students over a year. This is something like 60, 70 active right now. So this photo was taken just the other week. Yes. Okay. So we're ending it here soon. So what have we achieved actually as a school? Well, we have produced or brought forth the structure of regenerative leadership, where the principal role is evaluated annually, and biannually, every 2 years, the role is open. And that means as a principal, I have 1 year, and after that, I am evaluated. How did it go? How did I do my chores? Did I fulfill my role? If I didn't really succeed, I have another year to kind of improve. And if that didn't work the second year, or maybe even became worse, I do not lose my salary. I go back to teaching, and somebody else takes the place as a principal. So this is a way to have a principal role that is exchangeable out of necessity if needed. So the principal role is also divided in 3 domains, as I talked about earlier: multifunctional resilience. We also decided on that we have around 8 weeks per year paid free time. That's 11 weeks of vacation holiday, more or less. And we also decided that nobody should work more than 32 hours a week. We want to use more time to do the connections that we need, to grow the food that we need, and create this alternative way of living that is so important. We also have the decision that every role and function has the same salary. Sick leave is fully paid. You should not be disturbed economically if you're just sick. So we take that cost. And we created open spots in all meetings as well. So even if you're in a growing circle and you want to attend the top circle, you go ahead and do that. So these are the things we strive for in the next upcoming future. 32-hour work week for all. This is not really functioning optimal at the moment. I, for one, work a bit too much, but we're getting there. Things are happening. It's a design thing happening. We want to integrate the HAV, the health working environment and guidance, into every perspective of the school as well. So functional succession within every circle as well. We want resilience in circles. So what happens if a teacher quits? We should be able to build resilience before that. And the biggest thing we're working on right now as a design thing is self-sustainability, self-sustained unit by design. We want to produce all our food. That's the vision of the transition. We want to be self-sustained in the largest amount and create the connections for the rest that we cannot produce ourselves. So this is the school. This is my presentation. And now I think I'll be fine with stopping. Thank you for being here.
Andreas, that was incredible. You touched on so much, like you gave us the whole and then zoomed in on the parts, showing us a lot of the principles at play and the goals, and the images were gorgeous. I have a couple of questions that I captured from chat, and then I will, we can also look around for anyone who didn't chat, write it in the chat who has questions for you.
Awesome.
So Henny had a question about where did the students fit into this organizational structure? So let me just see if I can unmute. Hang on, Henny, if you want to, am I doing a good job on, hang on, unmuting you, Henny, if you want to ask your question. It's not letting me. Tedda, can you help with that?
Yeah, I think I'm on.
Okay.
Yeah. Just by looking at the structure, I miss where the students are located. If I understood from the PDC courses that you give them in the 4th and 5th weeks, or 5th or 6th weeks, the self-organizing. So like, where would they fit into this organizational structure?
Yeah.
Or if
so just allow me to screen share just a short bit. This is actually this one. This is where they decide and they work with in these different 4 subjects: the practicals, the optional subjects, the councils. I did not mention the councils so much. The councils is where they connect with the staff on a regular basis, but the working days are where they connect with the lives, like you can see it's called implementation and vision living. That's where we do the vision and the feedback live with the students at every class. How different courses work with self-organizing is up to those teachers. So it's hard to describe our general model because they do it a bit differently, actually. Yeah, this is the domain of the students. If that answers your questions, hopefully.
She's looking satisfied. Thumbs up. Thanks, honey. I had another question from Les, who just said that this project, in his opinion, this project is of global significance. So just, yes, absolutely. And then Les, I'm going to just unmute you and let you, like, I don't need to be redundant. So do you want to say your question, Les?
Well, first, let me say, Andreas, that was a great presentation, a great use of Prezi. I love the little videos, and it's so inspiring. I can't wait to share the whole presentation with my professional colleagues. Thank you, well done. What struck me was that this is funded by the Swedish state, and you know, we know across the world that Sweden is a very liberal economy. In the UK economy, your project would never get funding. And it could be in other Western economies that the funding wouldn't be available. So how do you sort of intellectually challenge this issue that you're overall it's an unsustainable project that is actually demonstrating sustainability so well?
Very good question, actually. Well, there are different, this is called a folk high school. This is a special kind of public popular education model, which is within all these Scandinavian countries. Very similar within all these Scandinavian countries. We have schools within this sphere that are not so dependent on state money, that kind of do a lot of external organizing, external funding, and also generating their own economy through classes that are paid for. So there are diverse way of doing it. I'm very much aware of that. This is kind of a sustainable project within a hierarchical state solution. We have the discussion on how to work with that, but as a young school, we need the structure of this first before we take those considerably very large steps, I would say. So, but I totally hear what you're saying. But as models, I have colleagues, other principals that I meet that are working with different economical solutions. So possible, yes. Now, no.
Okay, timely question. And yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you say that, you know, I mean, I'm calling it a public school. You called it something else, hang on, a popular school, but that it's really, you see it as a tool for transition. But the challenge of bringing these great models into the public education where they're accessible to all is the regulations that you have to bump up against and the constraints. So, yeah. All right, a couple more questions. Thank you for your thinking on it. A couple more questions. We have one from Jerry, who, Jerry, I'm gonna just let you talk, you go ahead.
Andreas, yes, you mentioned that there are open spots in all the circles.
Yeah.
And I wondered how far that went, whether that was just open to observe, open to participate, open to be able to say, I object.
It is open to participate, but not when decision comes. So everybody can listen, everybody can talk and give their view. But when decision comes, that goes with the representatives and delegates and leaders. So they're not included in decision making. Mm-hmm. The reason for that, there used to be a small school or small general circle where everybody was at every meeting. But since we grew so fast, we had to make this choice to divide circles and create separate domains. So yeah. I hope that answers your question. The thing is, when that happened, there was kind of a feeling of uncertainty, what is going on. So that's why we created the open spots. Actually, they're not used very much, just occasionally. And the result has been good, actually. It's been very useful.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of open spots for transparency, for people learning how different circles work. And then, of course, I think my question came from the concern of, what if someone who's not a regular member, is objecting to something? Or to extend the question would be, do you have policies that allow you to remove somebody from a circle if their participation is sort of getting in the way of achieving the aim of the circle?
We do not have a policy on removing people from the circle, but what we do then is talk about the aim of the circle. So the policy is not there yet, but we have had that happen, but we have not made a policy out of it. Actually, we have had people change circles, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, check.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Pascal had a couple of questions for Pascal.
Thank you, Laureen. Yes, thank you so much, Andreas. It's really very, very inspiring, but it's also so big and so complete. So I'm trying to bridge it with the little bits and pieces that we can have here, because yeah, as Les was saying, funding is not always so easy. We're in the process of a design of a school here, and we're very interested in permaculture, but the kids are younger. And my question was, how would you see such a school with 3 to 10-year-olds? And I had a second question that has nothing to do with the first one, and which is, we know what's happening in Sweden right now. Do you discuss in your circles hot issues such as migration and refugees that are having such an impact on Swedish society today?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to start with your first question, younger children. Well, I've thought a lot about that. I'm thinking it has to do with the domain structuring. How is actually a domain for a 3-year-old supposed to look like? I don't have an answer to that, but I'm thinking, since there will be a lot more responsibility with age, it has in some way to be relevant to the structure as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to run it. But seeing the great Wandering School video that just appeared was just a great inspiration. But those are a bit older, turning into teens kind of thing. So within that time span, I would say not very different. I know on a personal level, we have with my kids and my family, we do rounds and we do decisions by objection. And I know my 8-year-old says, is there any objection to that? And I say no. So I'm saying it's just a way of implementing and starting to talk with kids.
May I make sure I'm understanding? So for you, there is practically no difference between a permaculture school and a sociocratic school. It's the same thing.
No. You can have a permaculture school, but the vision, if the vision is permaculture, I would say a permaculture social model, that's sociocracy for me. It can be other ways as well. And I mean, the topic for this talk said why every permaculture school or every school should have a sociocratic input. Well, I don't really say it's necessary, but they can learn something from sociocracy. You can organize in other ways as well that suits you maybe even better, but you can take the objection thinking from sociocracy. So depending on your vision, if you do it sociocratically, you will be able to fulfill it, I think. The other question was migration. Yeah, I guess this is not only a Swedish thing. Something's happening in large parts of Europe and the Western world and hemisphere. I would say it's built on fear generation. This model that we're seeing, we see these kids coming to us, mostly kids and refugees coming to our school, the general course. We have people from all backgrounds, and what we see is we have a lot to learn from these people, and not these people, they're our people. We have a lot to learn. So yeah, there are different kinds of thinking frameworks within society. The way we can address that is creating a long-term vision. So that's what we do. So yeah. Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you. One more question, and then we're getting close to the time. So Anna Ruth, I will try to find you and unmute you. Go ahead, Anna Ruth.
You want me to speak?
Or would you like me to read your question, Anna Ruth?
No, it's okay. I unmuted myself now. There were a couple of questions, Andreas, but first of all, I'm blown over, and I wish this room here at the Center of Human Ecology on top of the Pearce Institute in Glasgow, a very illustrious place, would be filled with lots of people, but I had this great idea far too late. But here we are, 3 of us anyway. And we certainly will have parties to listen to that again and watch it in detail. Thank you so much, Andreas. My questions, 3 of them. Have you progressed or plan to integrate animals into the project? Which are the different economic solutions you were referring to earlier on? And then if you can, say a little bit about what have been or what are, if they have changed, the main challenges and obstacles to growing sociocracy in the various domains and structures. Thank you.
Wow. So the first question, animals. Well, there is no animal inclusion in the system. I would say that is mainly a practical reason, because we do not have the stability and the course stability to be able to take care of animals 24/7. That may be a future thing. I hope it will be. But as of now, it's just not practically possible. Your other question was, I lost you. Please repeat, Ruth.
What are the different economic solutions you were referring to earlier on?
Okay. Well, the different economic solutions for funding of the school. Well, you have like a regular business model that quite a few of the similar schools use is having like open seminars that are paid, and they do conferences, and also getting money from the municipality, still hierarchical solutions, but also different kind of well, both private but also regional money that can come in on maybe different sustainability projects, and running the school more or less on different projects all the time. There are a lot of schools doing that. Money from all sorts of grants and yeah. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions. And I lost your third question.
Third question was, what have been or what are the main challenges to obstacles to growing sociocracy in the various domains and structures or whatever?
Well, I would say trust. Starhawk is an awesome author and permaculture character who wrote a great quote which says, work at the speed of trust. So actually always being able to walk backwards when you move too fast, and pick up and join hands with those that you kind of walked away from a bit too fast. So that's just one of the toughest thing to do and to remember to do, actually. So that's kind of a mental answer to your question, I would say. Also, like keeping trust within the system that when it grows, I would say that's really something you have to work with in every conversation you have, actually. Anchoring the vision, talking about the common goal, always, always, always. And also you said the human ecology. I'm a human ecologist by by degree. So I'm glad to have you here as well. Thank you.
Andreas, thank you so much for like bringing us images of your school out. For those of us who can't travel, some people in the chat said they're ready to come over and visit your school.
No, they're welcome.
But just thank you. And thank you everybody who made time to be here today. Goodbye.